Welcome to The Old Man and the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 210, Tyrese Haliburton. We have had Tyrese Haliburton on a number of times. I recognize that. He has been probably our most frequent correspondent, someone that we always love catching up with and getting his perspective on things, both individually and around the NBA. This was the first time that we ever sat down in person for a podcast interview with him. He was at our studio in Brooklyn Friday night before playing the Knicks the next day. And I got to say, it's always better in person. This was the best interview conversation we've had with Tyrese. We touch on so much stuff, including the 65-game rule. A lot of poignant thoughts on that from both him and I. There's some beautiful X and O talks in this. We talk about Buddy Hield going to the Sixers and sort of what that means for Tyrese. And of course, the new partnership with Pascal Siakam and some great stuff in there as well about Rick Carlisle and his coaching style. Just a fantastic episode. A couple things before we get to Tyrese. Number one, it was leaked earlier this week. We are officially, ESPN is officially announcing today that I am getting moved to the A team to join Mike Breen and Doris Burke on the finals broadcast. We will be calling the conference finals and the finals. A few things here. Number one, wow, what an honor. I'm so grateful. I'm honored for a number of reasons. I think the two that stick out the most for me is when you call a game, when you commentate on the NBA, you are part of the documentation of NBA history. And I take that role and responsibility very seriously. And the fact that I get to document this year's NBA finals, I'm thrilled. Second reason I'm so honored is that Mike and Doris are GOATs. These are Hall of Famers. These are two people that I've known for 15 to 20 years, each of them. And getting to work alongside two people that I just admire so much is just an honor. It's an honor. I hope you guys know this. I think it comes across how passionate I am about the game of basketball and about the NBA. But I also hope you know how seriously I take this. This is not something that I do on the side. This podcast, calling games, first take stuff, I am fully invested in all of this stuff on a daily basis, and couldn't be more thrilled. The other thing I wanted to say is I have immensely enjoyed my time so far with Ryan Ruocco and Richard Jefferson. Those two guys have become two of my best friends. It has been a pleasure to work with them the last two NBA seasons, and I'm sure I'll work with them again someday very soon. So just again, thanks to ESPN for this opportunity and for everyone at the higher ups, Dave Roberts, Jimmy Pitaro, Burke, Mike Breen, Tim Corrigan, everybody that has faith in me that I can be complimentary and really an additive piece to what is already an outstanding broadcast team in Mike Breen and Doris Burke. All right, before we get to Tyrese, I gotta hit our DraftKings Sportsbook segment. Lots of stuff. Can't stop talking enough about the Western Conference and the playoff race. You look at the standings right now. Minnesota won last night, 16 losses. Clippers and Oklahoma City both with 17 losses. Denver with 18 losses. Little bit of separation then. Phoenix and New Orleans with 22 losses. They're in 5th and 6th. Just outside of the top 6 is Dallas and Sacramento with 23. And guess who's rising in the standings right now? The Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. Golden State with 25 losses and the Lakers with 26. They're right there in the hunt, even just 3 games back for Golden State in the loss column before being in that top 6, and the Lakers 4 games back in the loss column from being in the top 6. How are they getting it done right now? It's really interesting. I've said this all season long with regards to the LA Lakers. Can they defend at a high level, and can they shoot threes? That is what would make them a really good basketball team. They're 5-1 in their last 6. D'Angelo Russell with 22 points a game, shooting 43% from 3 on almost 10 attempts. Austin Reeves at 20 a game, shooting 46% from 3 over the last 6. As a team, They are 7th in the NBA, shooting the absolute you-know-what out of the ball at 39.1%. Number 5 offense, number 8 defense. That is the winning formula. Making threes at a high level and defending. One thing to note, I wanted to, before we get to the Warriors, one thing to note. So for the season, the Lakers have the 19th best offense and the 14th best defense at 114.6. That's their defensive rating. And I saw something recently where a pundit said that Anthony Davis should be player of the year, defensive player of the year. And it's crazy, but the Lakers have actually defended better with Anthony Davis on the bench than they have with him on the court. Just a fascinating random statistic I came across this morning. His defensive rating is almost a point worse than their team rating. Hard to win defensive player of the year if that's the case. With the Warriors, you look at the Warriors during their dynasty, during their 8-year run, when they had elite basketball teams. How did they get it done? Everybody talks about the offense. Everybody talks about the shooting. They always had an elite defense. They've won 5 in a row over the last 5 games. Number 1 defense in the league. You look now with Draymond Green back, playing center in the starting lineup. You got Wiggins and Kuminga on the wing. Kuminga, who we've touched on a bunch, who I've touched on a bunch on broadcast, playing out of his mind, the best basketball of his young career so far. That lineup, that new starting lineup with Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Kuminga, Green, they've got a defensive rating. It's the second most used lineup for the Golden State Warriors. They've got a defensive rating of 95.8. Would be far and away the best defense in the NBA, right? So that, to me, is the key for them. Can they defend at an elite level? And over the last 5 games, they have done that. Last team I want to touch on a little bit in depth is just the Phoenix Suns, who, since that Christmas Day loss to the Dallas Mavericks, are 18-7. They've got the second best offense over the last 25 games, the 9th best defense. Now, Bradley Beal, hamstring injury last night. We don't know how much time he will miss. The numbers with Beal in the lineup, Durant, Beal, Nurkic, Booker, Allen, that group, 130 offensive rating. Just, you cannot defend them because you cannot put 2 on the ball. Too much shooting. Now you sub out Eric Gordon for Bradley Beal, and that group also has great numbers. Their defensive rating is 102.7. And if you look, those are the first and second most used lineups for the Phoenix Suns. So when you talk about shortening the playoff rotation, the top 6 for the Phoenix Suns are very formidable. They absolutely should still be considered a Western Conference championship contender. On DraftKings Sportsbook, you look at the odds right now. Denver and the Clippers have the 2 lowest odds. Denver at plus 225, Clippers at plus 235. Then it's Phoenix at plus 750, Minnesota at plus 800. Everyone else in that top 10 over 1,000. OKC, I think a little disrespected here. 5th best odds at plus 1,100. Just a fascinating conference down the stretch. Couple things to just note about some of these teams that I didn't go in depth on. And we're going to spend some time, by the way, on Minnesota, particularly in the coming weeks coming out of All-Star break. And what they're doing, both offensively and defensively, and maybe some unsung heroes that they have as to why they've been so successful this year. So I will spend some time on Minnesota in the coming weeks, but I do want to note 2 things. Watch New Orleans and watch them continue to unleash Point Zion. Their half-court offense functions so much better when Zion brings the basketball up and they have shooters around him. Really fascinating. We saw when he was at his best, I think his best season was the year that I was there, my second year there, Stan Van Gundy's year. We realized about 8 to 10 games into the season, hey, let's just have Zion bring the ball up and set screens for him with guards, go screens, slip screens, try to get mismatches, try to get 2 on the ball, play out of that. We had a lot of success, and New Orleans is having success with that. Second team, I know Tim and I mentioned this on Monday in the Old Man and the 3 Things, but the Dallas Mavericks with PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, all of a sudden you look at their team, if they're healthy, they have a pretty damn good playoff rotation. And they have 2 absolute stars in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And I feel like for the first time, really, in the Luka era, they have a roster and the pieces around him that make a lot of sense. So Dallas Mavericks, team to watch coming out of All-Star break. Again, all these numbers presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. This has been the DraftKings Sportsbook segment. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code JJ. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 back in a bonus bet if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code JJ. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One no-sweat bet per new customer. Issued as one bonus bet based on amount of initial losing bet. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/promos for deposit, wagering, and eligibility restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Without further ado, let's get to our guy, Tyrese Haliburton.
What a blessing to have you here. I don't even know the total amount of podcasts you've appeared on. We've never actually done one in person. This is a treat, man. This is a treat. Thank you for coming. Growing up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, what were some of your early style influences?
Style influences. My dad's number one for sure.
Yes.
Anybody from the area can speak to how my dad dresses. I wanted to dress like my dad growing up. He's all like sweatsuits. Like,
yeah,
he's got sweatsuits to this day, probably from the 90s that are like, matching top, matching bottom, put the matching shoes on. So I always wanted to dress like that growing up. And then I started to create my own lane since then. And that has a lot to do with it. But my dad, definitely number one style icon for me.
Do you have a stylist?
I do.
You do?
He actually, you're his all-time favorite player. He just told me that the other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might have to hire him.
Yeah. He lives in Brooklyn.
By the way, this is a weird question, but does your dad have an IG?
He does have an IG.
Does he post on it?
I don't know if he posts on it.
Okay.
I don't know if he knows exactly how to work Instagram because he'll send like motivational DMs to people. He sends them to you?
Bro, this week I'm looking. So I check like I check my DMs once a month.
Yeah.
And I'll go through and look. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of times when I check my DMs, I'm looking for that blue check because it's like sometimes brands, like golf brands, will reach out.
Right.
Hey, we want to send you some gear or whatever. So I'm like, I always check for the blue check. And I get to the top and there's John Haliburton. Right? And I'm like, no fucking way. And so I click on it and I click on the profile and it's like one post and like, 467 followers, whatever it is. I'm like, let me see what this guy's sending me. And for sure, it was a motivational post.
They're like motivational posts, Bible verses.
Yes. There was two. There was a motivational post and a Bible verse.
I really don't think I've never talked to him about it because he doesn't send them to me. Or sometimes I get them, but Jade gets them all the time. And just like, friends from college or like one of my friends from college, her little brother, like my dad sends him to him. I'm like, Dad, you couldn't pick him out in a car. I just don't think he knows what he's doing.
It would just be an amazing burner. Your dad has, or if there's someone who
I feel honored.
A fake account.
I felt honored.
I don't know what
he also
going
loves.
on.
He loves JJ.
He does
every single time.
Does he?
Yes, every single time I see him.
My dad has watched every single YouTube video with my name attached. So like every day he goes on.
Yeah. So like not just like our podcast, but
highlights, any podcast I've ever been on. Like
Podcast P.
Like I'll walk in my house sometimes when he's in town and he's visiting, and I'll walk in from the game and I'll go in the living room and he's watching a podcast with you guys from my rookie year or Podcast P with me on it. He'll watch them like 100 times.
He's becoming a real rock star.
He is. Yeah, this attention and fame, he's loving it a lot.
By the way, how would you sort of describe the evolution of your own celebrity?
I would say I'm like a F list.
No, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you?
You were an NBA player.
Yeah.
You go to Indy. You make the All-Star team last year. You blow up at the beginning of the year. You're everybody's favorite. You're everybody's favorite. Those are my words.
Yeah.
You're number one in fan voting, number one in player voting, number one in media voting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
It's different.
It's
different.
It is really cool. Because like when I first came to the NBA and I was in Sacramento, I was like, well, you'll never, you're in Sacramento. And then I got to Indiana. It's like, well, it's Indiana. You're not going to get.
You'll never be the cool kid.
Yeah. But I always say, like, I grew up in Wisconsin and the Bucks were never cool. Like, nobody cared about the Bucks. Like, Andrew Bogut, number one pick. It wasn't like a flashy pick, And then Brandon Jennings came and it was cool to wear Bucks jerseys. Like, me and Tyler Hero, we'd go to games and we'd wear our Brandon Jennings jersey. It was cool. They were like green and red. And then Giannis came and now they have one of the biggest players in the NBA. And now players want to go play with them. And, like, dudes are taking pay cuts to play for the Bucks. They win championships. So that's my thing going to Indiana. People are like, well, you'll never be able to get people to want to come play with you. But for me, it was always like, well, if I'm good enough, people will come play. You know what I mean? Like, that's the big part of it. So I would just say me growing up in Wisconsin, I think has a lot to do with, my mindset. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm at.
You're unfazed up.
Yeah. Whoever I am.
What's like a public appearance for your own personal sort of pursuit? Grocery store. I don't know if you go to the grocery store, go out to dinner, go to the movies. I don't know if people still go to the mall. I don't know how this operates anymore, but certainly you leave your house and go other places besides the practice facility and the arena.
Yeah.
What's that experience like in Indiana?
I get a lot of people want to come take pictures. Yeah. I get mobbed sometimes. I don't really go places. I have a chef now like 6 days a week, so I really only go out to dinner one day a week. And
you're investing in yourself, man.
I am.
Good for you.
So there's like
you got a stylist. You got a chef. Do you get a personal driver yet?
I do not. I drive myself.
Security?
Joe's
number one pick in the 95 draft, Joe Smith.
Joe the legend.
But no, I don't really go places other than maybe a restaurant here and there. Don't go to the mall. No chance I'm going to the mall. I don't even know what else there is to do.
We used to go to the mall in the NBA.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
Like on the road, it was like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Let's go to the mall.
You know what was cool? My mom was just actually talking about this the other day. When we were in Abu Dhabi this summer, we went deep to the mall. Like me, Jalen, Josh, all of our families. So Jalen's got the newborns, his mom, his dad. I got Jade, mom and dad. Jalen's got his sister, mom and dad. Like
Josh has the newborns. Josh has newborns.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We were like 20, 25 deep. And I was like, this is going to be a zoo. But the people there were amazing. I think it's just the culture there, but nobody came up to us. We never get asked to take one picture. Like, that was the first time that's happened in a long time. And I was with two guys on the Knicks. I thought for sure like we were going to get mobbed, but no, it was.
What about like New York, LA? Like,
it's not.
Has it changed at all?
It definitely has changed. Like if I go to a restaurant here in New York, people are going to like know who I am, want to take a picture. Yeah. I live in LA in the summer. That happens sometimes. Definitely way different than it ever was before. Really, I would probably say after last season is when everything changed.
Okay. So the reason I was asking, because I feel like to some degree, as like an outside observer, it felt like the in-season tournament run was like an inflection point.
Yeah.
For you,
100%.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Not just like, do people want a picture with me?
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? In terms of like, it was a zeitgeist moment for you.
For sure, 100%. That's not a question. I think my Instagram following like doubled. After that, everything kind of took off. And I think that you see people talking about me on ESPN, and I was kind of like, I don't think I've ever even heard Stephen A say my name before that. You know,
remember when I saw you?
Yeah.
I remember when I saw you. I had done First Take that morning.
Yeah.
And then I was going to do NBA Today, and you had just finished your media scrum. And I went over to you. I was like, "Hey," we were catching up. But then I whispered in your ear. I was like, "Dude, it's all we're doing is talking about you today." Like it's like I've been doing this. This is my third year doing this. Like, when are we talking about a Pacers player? This is fucking weird.
Yeah, no. Hearing people say my name that have never said my name, even right now. Like I think Stephen A had a little segment the other day about my comment on the 65 games. And I was like, it's different now.
When you're watching sports at home, it's so much better when you have a great sound system. And now you can experience your favorite games like never before with the unbeatable sound of Sonos Arc. You guys, this thing rules. The precise and immersive sound of Dolby Atmos will make you feel like you are in the arena. You can really hear those feet squeak and the ball swish. It's awesome. And when the TV is off, you can stream music, podcasts like this one, audiobooks, and more using the Sonos app, Apple AirPlay 2, or your voice with Sonos Voice Control. You all know I love Christopher Nolan movies. The first time I watched Tenet with the Sonos Arc, my mind was blown. With Sonos, you can start with one speaker and expand your system over time. Everything works together over Wi-Fi, so you can group speakers in different rooms and play music throughout your home. So do yourself a favor and get your Sonos Arc today. I have them in my home. I love it. We have them in our office. I love it. Visit Sonos.com to learn more.
We should go there. Let's go there.
To Indy?
No, we should go to the 65 games.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
let's go.
Yeah, I like when the guest brings up a topic.
Okay.
So my question actually around this, because you have commented on this and you said it was a bullshit rule. I'm sure there's been some backlash from different people about that. But my question about this was the general mindset about your first injury, the first hamstring injury, right? Yeah. Because I'd talked to you about it, right? And I was like, bro, I've had a ton of hamstring injuries, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't like giving you advice or anything. I was just kind of providing context.
Yeah.
But did you feel like a sense of urgency to come back sooner than maybe?
Yeah, no question.
You did.
Yeah, what? And then not from like our medical staff, but or
no,
like
for
that,
sure.
but like from
like a $53 million incentive
yeah,
type thing.
Like even I'm trying to think of the games that I've missed before that. In Boston, I got hurt right before I went to Boston. I couldn't play. Got like a Charlie horse, and if it would have been one extra day, we had a back-to-back. If it wouldn't have been a back-to-back, I would have played. And then I got like the flu in Miami and couldn't play the next day. Like I was throwing up. So those are the 3 games I missed. And then once, the minute I got hurt, I think like you could see like I got carried off. Like I was really emotional because in that moment, I was just thinking like, damn, it's over. You know what I mean? Like, season's probably over. I went to take a step with my leg and my leg didn't really lift up. Like it didn't really move. So I think in that moment, like any player, like you just kind of panic. But after that, it was just like kind of, and then the MRI was like good results. Like our medical staff was like, these are the best results we could possibly get. Like,
was it grade 2?
It was
grade 1.
Grade 1.
It was grade 1.
Grade 1.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, how can I get back as fast as possible? What's the right way? And then kind of after we traded for Pascal, and I knew he was going to play in that Portland game. And that was kind of the game that we were eyeing. Like it was either that game or I don't even remember who we played after that. But it was like that Portland game was where our eyes were on. And as soon as the trade for Pascal went through, I was kind of like, damn, not only is it the game I'm eyeing, that's the game I'm playing. Like if Pascal's coming, I want to be a part of the first game. Like, and the medical staff agreed. Like I felt good enough. And then after that, like I played a certain amount of minutes and towards the end of the game, I could feel my leg hurting. Like there was a play where Aaron went to flip the ball to me and I was going the other way and it went back court. And when I bent to pick up the ball, I was like, oh, this is not good. That night I like remember getting in the car, going back to the hotel, and I like had to sit down and pick my leg up to put it in the car. Like I couldn't really lift it. And so I was like, oh, this is not good. And then that's when like I think a lot of frustration boiled over because it was like I thought I was ready to go for the Portland game, and so did our medical staff. Everybody agreed. But I don't think if this was never the case, I might have been like
another week.
Yeah, maybe give it another game or two. You know, let me think more through this. Like, let's try to be 100%. And even now with this whole, I've had a minutes restriction now for the last 2 weeks, and it's
what's your is it 25?
It's changed. I mean, it started at 20, and then it's ramped up, and it's been fucking terrible. Like I hated it. You know, like I came back for the Boston game and they were beating us pretty bad first half. We're like a third quarter team. We got the game right back in the third. And I was like, oh, I'm done. Like, you know, and that was very frustrating. The New York game, same thing. We had the lead and I got pulled right as we were kind of running away in the third quarter. Then they come back and win. And then we tried to play the Kings game and they were like, we're not going to play you in the first quarter. Well, I even came off the bench. It's my rookie year. Like the flow of it was just weird. And so I think I've just been frustrated by it completely, but I understand where the league is coming from. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm a fan of basketball like everybody is. We want the best players to play. But realistically, like we talked about earlier, there's only a couple of us that this is going to hurt that this could hurt financially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's two parts there. So, number one, I think we can all agree the intent was good.
For sure.
And there's naturally, like I say this every time the NBA makes a new rule change about anything or new policy or whatever, is like every time there's a new salary cap thing, I'm like, love the intent. There's going to be unintended consequences.
Sure.
With the new second apron. There's like, I'm not smart enough to figure out what the unintended consequences are going to be 3 years from now, but there will be some.
For sure.
Whether that's like a team trading a high draft pick because they want to keep their core together. You know what I mean? So they're not up against the second apron. And then like 3 years later, that draft pick becomes the number one pick and it's a generational talent. And 20 years from now, we're like, oh, that's fucking team. But it's like that. The intent of the rule was for parity, right? So I don't know that there's like a solution for getting guys to play. And I also, I think the best question I have around this entire topic is if a team is willing to pay a player $260 million, if the Indiana Pacers are willing to pay you this amount of money, if the Minnesota Timberwolves are willing to pay the max for Anthony Edwards, do we need this like 1 year of like, he's got to make all NBA?
Yeah.
Tap it at Tatum too, right? That's the part that I don't like. If you want to incentivize contracts to performance, I'm okay with that. But putting it all on 1 year doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you had signed a contract and it was like during the course of this contract, if you make all NBA, or even if you made it twice, you have 6 years to do it, right?
Yeah.
Then you get the Supermax. I think that's a better route, right? Because you're going to be pressured into playing too soon with this games thing. You're going to, in some ways, I think guys, I don't think you're in this situation, but some guys are going to put more pressure on themselves and maybe play differently.
Yeah.
So I think that's the unintended consequence beyond just like trying to play. It's just the rule itself around the Supermax for this rookie extension I don't personally like.
Yeah. And like you said, at the end of the day, you think these organizations don't want to pay us this money? Like I understand for the salary cap reasons, but you don't think that the Minnesota Timberwolves want to show we made the right pick at number one, he's a Supermax player,
Yeah.
or Charlotte Hornets, we made the right pick, LaMelo's a Supermax, or the Pacers trading for me, or whatever the case may be. Like
Right, the Pacers gave up an all-NBA player to get you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the biggest thing. But like you said, I mean, the intent is correct, and I think people misconstrued my words to say like act like I don't care about fans. Like we don't need to play. Like no, I want to play 82 games if I can. But I mean, that's just not how the cookie crumbles right now.
Do you feel like this is an issue that for guys around the league who this maybe doesn't directly affect this year that they're actively paying attention to?
Well, again, I mean, I don't want to say like I think that you also understand like how I feel in the NBA, and I'm not going to say anything bad about the PA. Like the PA is amazing, but I do think us as players, you're not really necessarily thinking about everybody. You know what I mean? You're thinking about how does it relate to you and like kind of your peers. You know, I think kind of with like this year with the draft combine, like everybody has to submit their physicals now with this new rule. Like I'm not gonna lie, that would have screwed me if I had to submit all my physicals. I was coming off a broken wrist. I didn't give my physicals to Cleveland. I didn't give my physicals to Atlanta. Like I didn't give my physicals to teams that I didn't want to go to. Where like I understand why a GM would want everybody's physical because I don't care. Like for me, it was like you're gonna draft me. You don't even know if my wrist heals correctly. You don't know what my wrist looks like. So then that's a risk that you're taking. And I understand why the NBA would be pushing for that, but that's kind of something for me that I could have been a lot more involved with the negotiations for the new CBA, and like I'm just not that involved in the PA. And Harrison.
Why not?
Harrison would scream at me. He screams at me all the time about it.
That you're not.
That I'm not. Yeah. And
you seem like you'd be a good fit for it.
I think so. You think so?
Yeah.
I think I would be, but I'm just
maybe like as one of the 9 vice presidents.
Yeah.
There's so many vice presidents.
But that's just something like you said. Like I think sometimes as players we might think more about ourselves than we do, about the players coming in, or you know what I mean. Like it only affects this rule right here that we're talking about with 65 games. It affects obviously guys like Joel with MVP, but financially, really only 3 or 4 guys a year.
This is not a pushback on that, but I think I'm looking at it because we know CJ, and I think he's a well-reasoned, very thoughtful, very intelligent person. And it felt like, and I'm curious if you felt this last year. It felt like last year, the load management conversation really just hit a fever pitch.
Yeah.
And when you're actively doing something that is turning off your fans and making them angry, I don't think you really have a choice.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
if you are the product, the league, the game, the players, that's the product, right? And the consumer is saying, I really hate this part of your product. You have to listen to your consumer. So you have to actively try to correct whatever is wrong with your product.
For sure, 100%. And like you said earlier, if this didn't come down to,
Which is why I'm saying I don't like the rule. That like, first of all, let's acknowledge this. The rule, from my understanding, was basically put into place because of Derrick Rose, right? Where he won an MVP.
I've been told it's called the Derrick Rose
rule.
rule.
He won an MVP in his third year, right? He should have been paid more on par with his peers.
Yeah.
Right? The rarity of that, of a guy, I'm sure, I know it's happened a handful of times. It happens. I'm not saying that. There's a lot of fucking good players that are good by their third or fourth year. The rarity of it is still, it's a minuscule amount of guys. I would think if a team says, you're our guy, we want to pay you the Supermax, we're going to invest in you. And if you make the All-NBA or whatever incentive they want to attach to it, over the course of this contract, while you're in our uniform, you get the Supermax.
Yeah.
Now, if you say, we're going to sign you to this $260 million deal, and you have 5 years to make All-NBA, and 2 years into it, you request a trade, well, that negates any chance to get the Supermax, right? There's got to be some give and take on both sides. I just fundamentally don't like this, that it's just based on 1 year.
Yeah.
And it's your fourth year in the NBA, and it's now at the point where it's not $8 to $10 million over 4 years. It's $50 some million over 5 years.
Are there any comps like this? I'm just trying to think in general in sports. You bring a thing that is just obviously you getting hurt's completely out of your control versus requesting a trade or doing any sort of other thing that, we miss games because of technicals or whatever it is. Like this is, it just feels like a first in an interesting way.
I agree with that. And the other part of this, and this is just coming from my seat now, which is I vote on this stuff.
Yeah.
So do 99 other people. We're all smart enough to make these choices ourselves.
Yeah.
We are. If last year, no one played in enough games. The MVPs played 63, 64, and 66 games. Okay. So you're not going to give an advantage to anybody. So I've talked to some people who are like, I did a 50 game cutoff for All NBA. I did a 58. Last year was a little bit of an anomaly. Literally nobody played games. There was one guy, and I think it was Jokic that played. No, it wasn't Jokic. I'm sorry. It was one guy, I'm trying to think who it was, that played over 70 games that I voted for All NBA. Julius Randle. He's the only guy. So to me, you're taking some of the power out of the people that are voting on this.
Yeah.
And another unintended consequence, and I guarantee this will happen, is that some guy will make All NBA, probably in the front court, that because of games played, you're like, that guy got a third team All NBA. Interesting. Interesting. And this motherfucker played in 62 and he had an unbelievable season. This guy played in 68 and you're like, interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're smart enough to figure this out on our own.
That way for sure.
I want to talk about the ball.
The ball.
The Giannis ball.
Oh, that ball. Okay.
From your perspective that night, take us through that night.
Oh, man. The think pieces that I've seen on this ball are ridiculous. The think pieces are ridiculous. We had beat the Bucks twice to this point. We beat them in the season tournament. There was some juice to those games. There was a lot of talking, right? And so they came out and they were aggressive. I mean, I think there was like 6 or 7 technicals in the game. Bobby got kicked out. Like they came and set the tone. They were going to punch us in the mouth, and it worked. They won the game. They were up a bunch. We took our starters out. We're like, all right, like they're going to win. And they were getting Giannis a franchise record. And like, I'm not the fun police. If I was close to a franchise record, I want the franchise record too. So I get that. He gets a franchise record. They sub him out. Our third unit kind of makes the game interesting. Like gets it to like 10 or 8 or something like that. He comes back in. And again, like, understand, you got to win the game. I'm not mad at that. Like, I don't care. I did not care. But some guys on our team took exception to it. They were a little frustrated about it. So like, he comes back in, scores more points. He's talking more. It's okay. It's basketball. So after the games, we're like, guys are like, we're not shaking their hands. And it's the NBA. You know, I've played against many players. I've never shaken their hand before. Like, that's just how it goes. Like, not because of me, but they just leave after the game. You don't have to. It's not like kids basketball. We don't get in the line and have to shake hands.
I've lost a lot of games in my career. I probably shook hands after like 2 games.
Yeah,
and it was to go say hi to my boys. I'm going back to the locker room if I get my ass kicked.
Game, it's like if you're pissed off, you lost, you walk off.
Yeah, it happens. Whatever. But my trainer was sitting courtside. My like strength coach growing up. So I walked out, gave him my jersey, whatever. I turned around, and there was some talk back and forth. You know, the Bucks do the huddle in the middle after games. So there was some talk from that little huddle towards our group as we were walking off. So I'm kind of I'm watching it as I'm walking off, but I'm like, I'm walking off. So Lloyd's waiting for me. And then one of the Bucks assistant coaches is like going crazy on the other side. That's fucking bullshit, all this stuff. So he's kind of walking towards LP. And it's just me and LP out there because everybody's gone. So that's when those two kind of are now having a conversation, and I'm in the middle of it, and I'm kind of trying to calm down, but also I'm like, come on, bro, you can't walk over here. Like, it's not that serious. That's when Giannis and everybody, Chris and Damon, the whole Bucks team walk over. And at this point, it's me and LP and the whole Bucks organization. And I think one of our assistants, Mike Weiner, had the basketball. Had a basketball. Not the basketball, a basketball.
Right.
And he walked off with it, and I think Giannis saw it, and they had the ball the whole time, which has been proven this whole time.
The Bucks did.
The Bucks had the ball.
They already had the ball.
The whole time.
Wait, so which is the ball that Giannis ran off with? That was Weiner's ball?
What do you mean that he ran off with? That he ran for?
Yeah.
The backup ball. You know, there's two
of course.
The backup ball.
Yeah.
The ball, we took the backup ball they gave to our rookie who scored his first points. And then now it's crazy that basically it was proven for weeks, for days, that we did not have the real ball, and people are still there's still think pieces out there about it. Like, we never had the ball. The ball was never in our possession. We ran after it, whatever, had a conversation. Me, Dame, Chris, and LP are out there talking about it. And I didn't know that it wasn't the correct ball at the time. And they were like, Chris, like, that's BS. Like, if that's, and I'm like, you're right, bro. Like, Oscar Tshiebwe's first points versus Giannis's franchise record. Yeah. You're right. Giannis should get the ball. I was like, if we have the ball, that's on us. But I don't know anything. I've been out here the whole time with you. I was like, if that's the case, we'll get the ball. So then Giannis came back out, and he's seen the video. He's poking me in my chest, go get the ball, yada, yada. Yeah. And I'm like, why are you yelling at me? Like, I don't know anything about this. Whatever. They end up getting the ball. And then it was the whole, it ran too long. It ran too long with we don't know if it's the correct ball. It doesn't feel like the correct ball. It just became blasphemous.
Here's the reality of this whole situation. If Giannis does that against this season, against nearly any other team, and there's some miscommunication on the location of the basketball, the actual basketball, I don't think it's a big deal. It was the fact that it was you guys.
What about us?
Because you guys were mouthing off for like the first 3 times you beat them.
Well, I mean,
Tyrese.
You definitely were in Vegas. I was behind the bench.
Tyrese.
You definitely were in Vegas.
Definitely was.
There was some build up, is my point.
For sure. 100%.
That it wasn't just that some rookie
100%,
took the ball.
You're right.
It was that it was you guys.
You're right about that. 100%. Yeah. And then we played them 2 more times after that.
Yeah.
Is this your first real NBA rivalry team-wise?
Is it a rivalry? We've never played in the playoff. They have championship. I have never played a playoff game. That's a rivalry?
We were discussing this with Legs and RJ at the beginning of the season. There's really not like true rivalries right now?
I'm all for agendas, though. If you want this to be a rivalry, if we want to call it a rivalry, I'm all for it.
We can frame it that way?
Yeah, sure. Whatever helps build
the Bucks-Pacers rivalry.
But I'm saying, like,
the Pacers beat them in the semifinals of the
regular season.
If you guys play them in April and it's a 3-6 matchup, you think that everybody is not gonna?
I'd be hyped for that.
Oh yeah, then it's for sure. Then it's a rivalry. Then it's yeah.
But if you guys don't end up playing them in the playoffs at all this year, then the next season starts and it's just like, oh, it's the Bucks and the Pacers playing against each other.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a real rivalry yet. Not yet.
As it stands right now, you guys are in sixth. Philly made the move for Buddy. I want to get into the playoff stuff, but first I want to talk about Buddy, who you posted about him earlier. Been with him your whole career, and he's an interesting cat.
Yeah,
he's an interesting cat. He really is.
Very.
I'm curious about the sort of evolution of your relationship, both on and off the court.
Yeah.
Because you guys have you've been through a lot together. I think you've told this story before, but when you got traded from the Kings, you guys were on the plane to Indy, right? Together.
Yeah.
Talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious about just the evolution of this relationship over the last 4 years.
Well, who Buddy is as a person, I've always loved who he is as a person. He's got nonstop energy, he's funny, all those stuff, right? But my rookie year, I hated this guy. As a basketball player, I could not stand him. He started at the 2. I was kind of the backup, right? I was the rookie coming in. And it wasn't so much that he's in my way or it was just I hate, I don't know, I can't, when I'm on the floor with him, he's always running towards the ball. He never goes to the corner. He's always in the way. I couldn't stand him. And then my second year, I started to kind of come along more. I was now starting, he was coming off the bench, and then I would kind of slide to the point guard role, and then I'd be on the floor with him. And our synergy had just grown to a level that was a lot of fun. And then he kept saying, I'm getting traded this deadline, you're coming with. And I'm not, you know me, I wasn't going anywhere, but I get traded with him, whatever. And then it just felt like from there, our synergy was just we knew where each other were at all times. I knew you were going to ask this question. So I remembered the story today. We were playing Minnesota at home. I think I had 20 and 15. He might have had I don't remember what he had, but there's just so many possessions where he passes the ball to me. He runs and sets a blur screen.
Go screen, yeah.
A go screen. I come off. It's not there. I throw it back. I go screen. Then he gives back. And I remember Torian Prince, he's on the bench, and he's like, y'all do know there's 3 other players on the court. We were passing each other. That's just how it was when we first got there. And I think a lot of our offensive identity is formed around me and him. Even now, with him gone, I think that some other guys are going to kind of have to go into that role of knowing the right time to go screen. And we run a lot of stack action. And I thought Buddy is elite at that, knowing the right time to set the screen, slip it, where to slip to, and kind of all the intricacies of that. So, last night was my first NBA game without Buddy. It was weird. I've never had to pick the ball before, right? I've never had to get us from shoot around back to layups. I've never had to yell 2 lines before. It was the energy was different without having Buddy just constantly talking. It was weird, but I've known that he wants to be in a different situation, and I'm sure Philly will be good for him.
That's great. I love that.
I was gonna ask about the energy. He's a great locker room guy.
Yeah,
one of the best in the league for sure.
I think. Yeah.
Is there an off the court story you can share that you feel would give the viewers a sense of that personality? Because the energy thing, but he's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain Buddy to the world. You have to really know him. I think that the type of person Buddy is, and people probably, and it's not, I guess it's not technically off the court, but Buddy's the type of dude, he will never live longer than 5 minutes away from the gym, because he's I'm gonna be late every time. He lives right next to the gym, and he'll go, basketball is his therapy. Whatever's going on in his life or whatever, that guy is always, he'll go to the gym at 9 at night by himself, and there's always videos of him like flipping the ball himself, just shooting. And like, our managers or our interns will be there offering to rebound. He's like, nah, mental shooting. Like he always tells me, mental shooting. And he'll just like you're a kid in the driveway, like he'll just shoot. And that's just like, I think that's a lot of how we know him as the shooter he is just because of the way he operates.
Real quick, I have had a few interactions with Buddy, but there was one night in the bubble where a few of us were playing billiards, pool.
Okay.
And Buddy came in there, and I don't think Buddy knew any of us. Like legit, I'm not sure he knew any of us. There was no other Kings guys with him, and he just kind of like joined the group and then talked for like 2 hours.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this dude's different, man.
When people say that stuff like that, he's like, yeah, I'm Buddy. I'm Buddy. I'm everybody's buddy. Yeah.
You mentioned something. I want to go on a little side note here. You mentioned the stack action.
Yeah.
That's, I assume, Spain pick and roll.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So different folks call it different things. But the intricacies of that guard screener and making the reads on stack action. And I think teams are getting more and more sophisticated about disguising it. When we first started running it in LA, DJ and I would just like legitimately, I would be on the right elbow and he would be in the middle at the foul line. And Chris would bring the ball up the left side and then we'd just like do the action.
Yeah.
We weren't disguising it.
Yeah.
Now teams are really disguising it. But I was the guard screener. And I feel like had I played 5 or 6 years later, that would have been like that would have been part of my package. Where I went after that, I never really ran it again after the Clippers. How much have you ran that screening
as a
spot?
screener?
Yeah. Are you always the ball handler?
Always the ball handler.
Always
and I
the
think
ball
that
handler.
now with Pascal a little bit more, I'll be able to be that screener. And Drew Nemhard starts for us right now. So I will say, like, especially after in-season tournament, I started to get like face guarded and denied heavier. And so then we just that's kind of a counter when I'm getting denied is just to go into stack. That's kind of naturally where we go. But yeah, I think it's all about figuring out like the right, like we talked about, like the right time to screen, where to go to. Atlanta ran a crazy, I don't know if they meant to, but I think they did because I think Quinn's a genius. But
I saw it.
They cleared out the corner.
Yes.
And Bogey slipped to the wing. And, everybody guard-to-guard switches stack now.
Yeah.
Nobody guards it.
He had the entire left side.
I know. I noticed it in the game. And then Caitlin Cooper posted about it. And I DM'd her right away. And I was like, no, this is so crazy. And like, you can see me in the background like, oh, like
I know.
that's ridiculous. He had the whole side. He was wide open. And I don't know if they meant to. Because like when Big O set the screen. And then as he was rolling, he stopped and set like a flare within the stack action because the 5 always drops all the way back or within the Spain pick and roll. Right. And he was wide open. And I was like, that was
Quinn.
crazy.
I bet they did it on purpose.
I think so
because Quinn's doing different. Like one of the things they did, I don't know if they did it much last year, but I know at the beginning of the season it was different and they've kept doing it, is in delay action. Delay is just 5 out. So typically the ball handler will bring it up sort of the right or left slot, and the 5-man in almost every delay action is in the middle. And what some teams will do is they'll just drop the big and protect, right? So Quinn started putting the big in the opposite slot, so that it's a subtle thing, but because the action's taking place away from the big, then the big helper is like 2 or 3 feet away from where he normally would be.
Right.
So it's just like a way to create more space with the non-shooter, which is interesting. I bet he did it. I bet he did it on purpose.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. It was crazy. I was like, I've never seen anybody do it before. I've never seen anybody with that thought. But
and Bogey made the shot, right? It was a closeout and he shot faked and
on
he
the left wing in front of our bench.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that was nice.
What was the night that Pascal trade happens? We talked about it that day, right when it happened. What was your first thought?
Yeah. So I had an idea that it could happen. They had talked to me about there's a chance that it happened. I think we played in Denver. They were kind of like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but it could. And I was like, okay. But I keep my expectations super low. So I was like, that's not happening, whatever. And I actually had went to the gym early in Sacramento. I was still hurt, but I was like in the gym shooting. And then the notification, I heard in my headphones, the notification, nobody told me. Like everybody started walking in. I was like, yo, y'all see Bruce got traded? And they were like, he was in the breakfast room saying bye to everybody. And I was never there because I was already at the gym. Like nobody told me that this was, I knew it could happen, but I didn't know like when it happened, you know? So it was crazy. But I think it's like exciting for everybody because I've known Pascal just because of working with Rico Hines when I was in SAC. We used to do like, the Raptors do their summer workouts with Rico. So Pascal would always be there, but never really had conversations of like real dialogue before. But I think like as soon as he got there, we've just like the minute he got to Portland, we sat in the breakfast room before he met with our offensive and defensive coach and went over concepts and just kind of talked about what we expect like from each other and just kind of like the expectations moving forward. And it's been a good partnership. I think what I really appreciate is just like he listens really well. And like
he's receptive.
Receptive. There it is. Like there's times when new guys get on the team. I always think if you grab the rebound and I'm next to you, give me the ball because I want to give you it back. I just want to. I'm trying to drive and draw two, and I'm gonna give it right back. Put you in easier position. And usually when we get a new guy, it takes a little bit. Like when Bruce first got there, he would like do this, and I'm like, oh, give me the ball. Give me the ball. I'm gonna get you a layup. Like, come on. And I'll never like the Portland game. The first rebound Pascal grabbed, I was in front of him, and I was waiting for him to do this, and he flipped it to me, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Like he gave me the ball right away. So I think that it's been really good so far. I think it's just about keep learning each other. And this is my first time really moving to. I can trust him with the ball more. You know what I mean? Like when I was in SAC, we playing alongside Fox, he'd have the ball in his hands more. But now it's about how can I get P in the right positions to, get downhill to his right hand and in different positions. I've never played with a guy who can really post. Like he posts sometimes, and usually if a guy's not like on the block, I'm not throwing the ball in there. But Pascal, if you push him out to like the short corner, I was
watching a bunch of second spectrum clips since the trade today. And like his ability, it's like, I said this about Jokic, and there's like a little bit with Siakam. The rhythm and cadence of the game is just a little bit off. Yeah. And I mean that in a positive way. Like if you were thinking about like a beat, right? Most basketball players play to a beat and a rhythm. And then certain guys, they play like a beat off the rhythm. And but no, Pascal does that.
So true.
Like where he's got all the footwork, but then you're like, that looked a little different. Yeah. The decel to the XL was like, it was just a little off. Yeah. Right. Like the spin is just a little off the normal rhythm. Yeah. And it's really fascinating.
That's a really good point.
It's really fascinating. I think
that's why he's enjoyed playing with us too, because more times than not, we have 4 shooters around him.
Yeah.
And I think like the Athletic or somebody put out an article about when Pascal was in Toronto. He said like the number 1 player you want to play was KD and number 2 was Miles because of like the floor spacing. And that's been interesting too is like we've never worked on post spacing before because we don't play through the post often. But if things are starting to slow down, we need to get some, throw it to the post and work on flares and pin downs. And he's got 4 shooters around him. Like it's a tough cover.
And obviously you brought up the minutes restriction. So we still haven't seen, I think, this like partnership function at full speed. One of the things that I said when the trade happened, I was like, offensively, this is like a perfect fit, right? Number 1, I think Tyrese is the best guy in the league at the throw ahead pass. So there's been a number of examples already of that where you throw it ahead to him and he's attacking one-on-one in space. Number 2, he's never had this spacing. So whether that's in the post or you guys running 2-man action, he pops, he's driving a closeout to his right hand. Like he's never played in this space before. Yeah. And so it's been good. Is there anything that like basketball wise that has stuck out about him in particular?
Like you're talking like schematically?
Just like anything that surprised you about his game. I know you've played against him, but it's different when you're with that guy every day. Yeah. You're like, oh, I didn't realize how good of a passer he was, or I didn't realize like how good he is at
changing pace or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I would say two things. In the post, I didn't really know his step back is elite. Like
the one leg one?
Yes. Yeah. Like it goes in a lot. And like sometimes you shoot, I'm like, what the and it goes in, and it's been going in a lot. So like I have a lot of faith in that. But I would say his passing is probably the biggest thing too. Like he does a really good job. And I think like when we got traded here, you look at his numbers, right? He's averaging he's getting like 6 assists a game. Like, okay, like that's elite. And there's a lot of times
5.
where 5? Okay, right there. But he's coming down
22 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 57-44 shooting splits.
5 point something, or is it 5?
It's 4.8.
Damn. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing. Just in transition, like he does a really good job of finding me.
So I have a question. Last question on Siakam. Because I think in a way it's similar, in a way it's different.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I envisioned when Dame got traded to Milwaukee was the inverted pick and roll. And I think in some ways, you and Siakam an inverted pick and roll. So an inverted pick and roll is when the guard sets the screen for the big, is like a really interesting thing given your personnel because there's so much space. How much of that have you run? I couldn't really find a lot of that.
We haven't really, I mean, we've put it in and we kind of went over it.
Yeah.
But like, I would say like we haven't really played around with it enough. Like I think that like the more minutes we get together, the more we can, start to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think also me just like learning from Buddy, like I feel like Buddy's one of the elite like go screen guys. Like
elite.
Like maybe the best.
Duncan's up there too.
Yeah.
Duncan Robinson is up there.
Buddy always like running up, yelling stuff like switch, you know what I mean? Like
tapping people on the butt while he runs by. Yeah.
So like learning from that and like watching a lot of that film at the same time and just trying to find the right spots. And like, I think I have a good idea of how I can like manipulate the game the right way to like, we're not running a set, but there's a way for me to get to it without having to call anything and slow us down and slow our pace down.
And honestly, the Dame Giannis defensive matchups in general are probably more attuned to like running that inverted action where like Siakam and you maybe are guarded by similar defensive players. So it is a little matchup based.
Like yesterday was like Wiggins and Kuminga.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
You're not going to run it then.
Usually
you're not going to run it then. Yeah, exactly.
Big wings
exactly.
on both of us.
I wanted to ask about Obi and TJ. So when you guys got Obi this summer, JJ, I think you talked about it right away. I thought this was going to be a big addition.
I think he was like one of my unheralded pickups that could have a potential, not like a breakout like all NBA season, but like dude's a good player.
For sure.
He's going to a better situation for him. That's kind of how I framed it.
When you're a new player, and Pascal I think probably fits into this as well, but when you're a new player fitting into a whatever you want to call this offense, the highest possible octane offense, is there a level of there's a learning curve obviously fitting into any new offense, but like is there a level of intimidation about like I know everyone else is firing on all cylinders. I need to find a way to figure out how to find my role in that. And like how if at all are you surprised at how he's done it?
I'm definitely not surprised at what he's doing. I think that like early in the year we had a really good conversation because what Obi does so well is run the floor. And when he first got traded here, like one of our first conversations was me calling him like, hey, like, Mitchell Robinson ain't grabbing every rebound anymore. Like, I need you to help rebound here. Like, that's part of why, like, you're going to have to help. But also, we run, too. So, like, I think in the open court, Obi running the floor, like, there's not many people that are getting up and down like him. But early in the year, our offense was interesting because our what we were talking about in training camp was the 5 never take the ball out. Like, Miles never take the ball out, right? And that was like that through our first, like, 4 or 5 games. We lost to Chicago. And then I remember I met with Rick and LP and it was kind of, and I was saying, hey, I think that I know we've been hammering away at the 5, never take the ball out, but I think that kind of negates from what Obi does so well and what Miles does really well. Like Obi is elite at running the floor. So if you allow him, if you allow whoever to take the ball out, Obi can rim run because we want to get somebody on the rim at all times. We want a rim runner. And that's what Obi does naturally. So if like you have him taking the ball out all the time, he never gets to run to the rim. And like maybe once a game, I can find him ahead of the pack, kick ahead, dunk, right? So I was like, if you let Miles take the ball out, then that allows him to trail. Now he can drag and reject the drag. He's getting his top of the key three where he plays so well. And we play 5 out anyway. So Obi rim runs and then kind of bleeds out to the corner anyway. Now we're just straight into our stuff as normal. But I think that's helped a lot, is allowing Obi to be who he is and run to the rim.
How would you describe Rick as like a tactician? Because there is an element of free-flowing basketball.
Yeah.
And when I was in Dallas, there was an element of get Luka the ball and just have him like manipulate every possession to a degree. But then when we got in the playoffs against the Clippers, I was like, oh, dude, Carlisle is a tactician.
Yeah.
Like, it may not look like from the outside, like, oh, they're running these like really advanced sets, but there's like a really intensive intent for what you're doing.
Yeah. I would say 2 things. I was going to start with genius. Like, he does a lot of things, even when we do a lot of 5-on-0, whether that's in practice, which you're not really practicing a ton this year, but in shoot arounds and stuff, we do a lot of 5-on-0. And even if we're not going full speed, it'll be like, the angle of this cut has to be this way. Like, do it again. And everybody's like groaning, like, oh, I gotta do it again, or the angle of the screen isn't right, or the timing of when we're running like a floppy action, like it used to always be Buddy, but it would always be like, Buddy always went on the floppy action too early. Like, we're running a pin down, then the floppies come in, and Buddy would be past both screeners before the big got to come out to pick and roll for the pin down. Yeah. And Rick would just make us do it again and again and again. And I think that hammering away on that, and he does a really good job of maybe running the same set, but just throwing a little wrinkle in it that you might not be paying attention to, that might not seem like a big deal. It could literally be what player is in it, and you're like, why? Why are we putting Buddy's on the floor? Why am I running this for Obi?
TJ.
There it is, TJ. He'll get a kick out of that one. He'll be pissed when he hears this. But like, why am I running it for TJ? Well, now his point isn't to run the play for maybe the shot, but he knows if I get it to TJ and he can then attack and I'm there on the flip. Like, he's thinking a step ahead, I feel like. And then I'll say the other thing is like.
Hold on, I want to clarify that because I think that's important. For any coach and any player to understand, I don't want to bring my 9-year-olds into this, but I tell them all the time, like, yes, it's a play.
Yeah.
It's just an action to get us into concepts. Right? So I think to that point, it's like a good coach will understand the waterfall effect, the ripple effect of a certain action with a certain matchup and what that potentially could lead to, right? You're going to get, if we run it this way, I know that's not how we normally, but if we run it this way, we can get to what we actually want.
For sure. And I was told that when I first got in the NBA, was kind of like the best players just they can run the same thing over and over and beat you in a different way in that play. Like CP was running Spain pick and roll on my rookie year, and they scored like 4 straight times in a different way every time. And he never said anything. And I was like, what is going on? But on the next thing I think that Carlisle is he's very, he trusts me a lot. He trusts his point guards to make a lot of the reads and make the calls. Like, he never trumps what I call. Like, I probably trump what he calls 5 to 6 times a game. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, he wants me to have a complete input over what we do offensively. And if he sees some, he'll come up and talk to me, or we'll talk about it at the timeout or whatever. But like, that was like last year, he came up to me before the year and was like, not calling plays anymore. Like, that's your responsibility.
Does he give TJ that freedom and Aaron?
Yes.
He does.
Yeah. And I would say and that's constant conversation, I think, in our point guard room of like me, TJ, and Andrew talking about that consistently, because I think that they're on the floor less than me, and they kind of, when they are running sets, I kind of think like, I've always been told, like, being the point guard, your job is like, you're like the mom of the team. Like, my mom's job was to keep all our kids happy. If I'm the point guard, my job is to keep everybody happy. If he ain't touched the ball in 3 possessions, 4 possessions, how can I get him a touch. You know, some guys just want to touch the ball. They don't want a shot. They just want to be involved in the action.
Feel a part of it.
Touch, and then they get off it. And I think that like what TJ does so well, TJ's elite at push action. He's elite at the pistol, working the baseline, beating his guy.
I call it Nash action.
Nash, yeah. Elite under the hoop, you know? And so sometimes he can get caught up in running. Yo, we ran pistol 4 times in a row, TJ. Or Andrew's good at coming off drags, keeping guys on his back, and, you know, running the Gortat screen for layups or whatever. And it's like just trying to find the right way to balance everything. But I think Coach does a good job with that.
For clarification purposes, because we've used a lot of concepts and I've tried to explain them all, what Tyrese is describing and what I call Nash action, you call push action.
Well, no. The pistol.
Pistol is just a 1-2 sort of. It could be a ghost screen. It could be a slip. It could be a straight pick and roll. TJ turns the corner. The big then becomes engaged, and he just drags the big underneath the basket. And Nash used to do that better than anyone. That's why I call it.
Yes, I call it Nash too. I was talking about the pistol.
You mentioned that great players can beat you on the same play in a number of different ways. I literally just diagrammed the simplest play in the world. Boston Celtics with Brad Stevens. They would have 2 guys in the corner. Rozier or Smart bringing the ball up, and they would put a screener and Jason Tatum in what they called stack, which is just like literally the 2 of them stacked at the top of the key. And JT could just make a read out of it. So he might Iverson cut over the top, rip through left, pull up jumper. You try to cheat the gap. He's fading now to the right side, 3. He might Iverson cut, let Smart or Rozier cut through, get into a pick and roll. Like, it was a simple play, but then it's like the individual creativity, freedom, intelligence to then just make reads out of that. Great players could beat you 10 different ways on the same play. I love that you said that.
That's what Golden State, that's how they won 4 championships? Yeah. Like, how many times do they just come down? I don't even know what the play is called, but you see them do the hand signal, and they just throw the ball in the post. Steph walks to the free throw line. Dudes are grabbing him, pulling him, and he's just like, he walks over there like nonchalant, comes off, hits a 3, then he backdoors for a layup. Then
Clay gets a backhand on a layup.
Clay. Like, you're like, what? They just do the same thing.
My favorite part about just in general, besides just like Steph and being like, oh, that guy's pretty good at basketball. My favorite part of watching Golden State is the pointing. Like, they're always just pointing. Great Draymond, Clay, Steph Looney.
They're just down the court and he's like, pointing. Throw it in the post over there.
They're just pointing. Yeah. I just love it.
I was going to ask both of you about that trust. I played for Rick as well, but is that something that you feel is particularly unique? Have you seen that in other situations?
It's a good question. You know what's interesting? As I figured as you were talking, you were asking that, and I was thinking of the coaches that I played for, and I think every situation is so different because of who the point guard is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then who the coach is. And I remember there was one season where Stan was, you know, he liked to have control and he liked to be able to like call the plays, right? But then there was one season where he was like, I don't want to call the plays. Jameer, you called the plays. You know, I don't know who our backup point guard was that year in particular. Maybe it was Jason Williams. Maybe it was Duhan. Maybe it was Anthony Johnson. I don't know. But he's like, you guys called the plays. Man, that lasted for like a week.
Yeah. Like, so, I feel like every coach says that, but they don't really believe that.
It's like what does every team say at the beginning of the year? Training camp. They're like, we want to play fast this year. And then they're like, well, we don't have the personnel to play fast. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a great question, Tom. I think the reality is, it takes a unique coach and it takes a unique player to get to that point where there's complete. Like that's what I fundamentally believe. It's not like a coach can have that philosophy. I'm going to give my guard trust or I'm going to trust my guard and give him freedom to just call the plays, run the offense, and I'm not going to be as involved within a game. And then I might talk to him during the timeouts. Like, that's fine to have that philosophy, but it takes a unique coach and a unique player to make it actually happen.
Yeah. I've been lucky to play. I mean, I played for Luke and Zach, who was like as players coach, you know, he was a player, right?
Yeah.
And then Alvin was like free reign, you know, like offensively, like he trusts you, like go score. And then coming to play for Carlisle, I just feel like having him coming from being with Luka, that helped a lot too. I feel like.
I love playing for Alvin.
Yeah, me too.
I love that. Playing for Alvin. It's just like, go score. Go score.
To this point, we were talking about this earlier today. So the top 5 guards right now, in according to Basketball Index and overall shot making, are you, Luka, Jalen, SGA, and Maxey. Is there a common characteristic you think you guys all share?
Well, outside of Tyrese, we all have the ball in our hands the whole game. Tyrese just happens to play with the MVP of the league, but he is
I think probably, no offense, probably more so than the 4 of you guys. He's more of a blur in transition.
Oh,
Maxey
he's unbelievable. He's so fast.
He's the fastest guy in the league.
No, Fox is the fastest guy in the league. I will never change my stance on that ever.
That dunk he had the other night was so sick.
He's
ridiculous.
He's so fast.
He's ridiculous.
People don't understand.
I don't know how he dunked that. I'm trying. Who was it against? He was like, he had no business dunking it. I want to say it was like off his left leg or something.
Yeah, he does that where he'll jump off the same foot and dunk it.
It was like, oh, that's surprising.
Yeah. Fox, Maxey, those are probably my and Ish Smith.
Yeah,
he's fast,
dude. You don't understand. I played with Ish Smith in like 2011. Like a young Ish Smith when he was like 22, 23.
He started against us the other day.
It's different, bro. And
like,
by the way, at that point in time, he didn't know how to change pace.
Yeah,
so it was just like that all the time. It was great. It was great. All right, let's wrap up with this. Mentioned the playoff thing earlier. Not without getting into sort of matchups and whatnot. Like this stage of your career, what would it mean to be in the playoffs? You guys, before you got hurt last year, were in a good position, and then you kind of nosedived. You're sitting there in 6th. Miami, Orlando right behind you. Like, I know you're motivated by this. What would it mean? What are you like? Are you already thinking ahead? Like, what's going through your brain as you're sort of processing the success so far, but also looking ahead?
Yeah, it would mean everything. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like this year more than the years prior, I'm like locked into every team, like especially in our conference. Like I'm watching like feels like more basketball than I ever have. Paying attention to standings more than I ever have. Seeing like where could this matchup be? Who holds our tiebreaker between this team? I'm just super locked into that stuff. I just think like I think I talked about this. Like after USA, it was kind of like a wake up call for me. Like not winning gold. That was like the first time I had real expectations to win since I've been in the NBA and still didn't do it, you know? And so not that I necessarily felt like, oh, that like us not winning gold is strictly on me, but like looking at myself in the mirror, it was like something needs to change. Like my daily habits, something has to happen because I can't do this anymore. I can't just like be a loser my whole life. Like I can't. So this year has just been completely locking in on winning and doing things to win. And I'm so thankful that like we've added Pascal because I think that we share that notion. Like he just wants to win at the same time. He's won a championship before, and I think that he's trying to continue to, you know, he'd like to do that again, you know. But I think for me, like I've been an all-star. You know, I've had a lot of individual success. I signed the big contract, like all that's cool, but I just want to be known for like my impact on the game. And like you can't impact the game and be a loser. You know what I mean? So honestly, it's all I think about. It's all I care about.
I figured that.
Yeah. I just
figured that. All right, this has been great. We should do it in person more.
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck the Zooms, dude. Fuck the Zooms.